whether you agree with this or not or even understand it, but since you're listening to me, that God Almighty has told me that Donald John Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. That is to say, I mean, we don't know how long the tribulation will last. That is a biblical phenomenon where God disrupts, destroys all of creation, except for a few people called the elect, which says in the essence that God is not speaking very well about humanity. He doesn't believe that humanity is going to rise up and everybody's going to be righteous and angels, that he's going to destroy it, and according to Matthew's Gospel, chapter 24. And that God has said that Donald John Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. And if you look at the chaos surrounding his presidency and his life in general, and now the life of the people that follow him, and what's going on in America in general, he's not the only aspect of the tribulation. Of course, you got the wars and rumors of wars, drum being beaten over in the Far East with Russia and Ukraine and Xi Jinping in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and then Kim Jong-un in South Korea and other places like Erdogan over in Turkey. But what I'd like to do is this. I want to ask you a question. And I want you to hold your answer. You're going to know the answer right away. And I'm not going to go where you think I'm going to go with this. Don't give me any. But I want to ask you a question because I just want to say a couple of things about and maybe somehow or another I can be helpful to you. I pray that I can. If a white man marries a black woman, right? Let's say any white man marries the beautiful Jasmine Arbery, who's the sister of the slaughtered, murdered, barbarically brother of Ahmaud Arbery. And I say that because I'm using her and I pray that she's comfortable with this, but she gave such a beautiful speech that touched my heart deeply. And I don't get touched very often, I don't, but she touched me. Her mother did too. Let's say a white man married Jasmine Arbery and they gave birth to a son. Would that son be considered white or black? I'll repeat. A white man marries Jasmine Arbery, who's a Hamite. Now, he's a Japheth. She's a Hamite, but can be referred to as a black woman. What would the child be labeled? Would the child be labeled as a white child? Or would the child be labeled as a black child? I'm coming back to that. I'm not through with that. But I want you to understand something about the Trump era and the tribulation running concurrently, and that Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. That let's look at this. I mean, and don't just get angry and reject me. And then if there are people there who do not listen to me, but you decide you want to share this message with them who are dyed in the wool, sure enough, MAGA Trump supporters, except for Nathan and his crowd who say they're Make America Great Again people, but they realize that Trump is not their idol and they don't follow him. Nathan said it a very beautiful way. And by the way, Karen, thank you for responding as you have done, and thank you for your gifts. We really appreciate that. Most importantly, I appreciate the great respect you gave me when you did respond. But let's say, for instance, that we try to understand here that if you have to talk to someone who is a Trump supporter, one of these who believe he's going to return to the presidency, one who believes that the election was stolen, and let's say you believe that, and let's say you've got somebody that says they've got proof that the election was stolen by Joe Biden and the deep state or the liberals or whoever. Now, the problem with that, if Trump allowed the election or under his administration while he was in power and in office, someone was able to steal something as valuable, something as visible, something as powerful as the presidency from the man who is the president, you have to, at the very least, take your hat off to someone who was able to do that. We just purchased we had it designed especially for us, a beautiful painting. We had it painted, the scenery we picked out, and it was hand painted on canvas with oil just for us. Took it 10 days after the painting was painted, took it 10 days for the oil to dry on the canvas. We purchased it. And if I allow someone to walk in and steal that, then you got to say, Pastor Manny, what's up with your security forces? Jesus says this in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 12, verse 29, and I'll paraphrase it, but that's the address, read it if you will. That you can't take a strong man, take his possession, break into his house, and take his possession unless you are able to bind him and take his possession, meaning that the person who is able to rob a man's house, the robber, then gets the category and the award as being the stronger of the two men, that the homeowner was the weaker. That's why he was robbed. If he was strong enough to protect his house, then he would never let anybody rob it. But Jesus says that the homeowner is the weakest person. So now if Trump was the homeowner, because he was in the house, he was in the White House of all houses, and Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, Biden my time, came in like a thief in the night and stole the presidency from Trump, you have to say that Biden is stronger. Now, that's not what I'm saying. That ain't what I'm saying. That is not what I'm not saying Biden is stronger. What I am saying, that's what Jesus is saying. And that's what the MAGA people are saying. You're saying that Biden was able to bind Trump, whether he was the deep state or whatever. It doesn't matter. The ultimate end is that you're saying that Biden was able to break into the White House and steal the presidency. That's what you're saying. And then the other thing I think that you want to think about, and you want to think about this in a more logical way. Okay, let's say, for instance, that by some fluke, whether you agree that Biden is stronger or not, I don't necessarily agree. I don't think much about either one of them, quite frankly. But let's just say that by some fluke, Biden was able to steal the election, right? Sometimes things happen. But then Trump comes back in an attempt to regain that which was stolen from him through several, if you will, efforts and battles. First, he went to the courts. This matter was heard in 61 courts, and a large number of those courts that rejected Trump's claim that the election was stolen were presided over by judges that Trump appointed to the bench, or the federal bench. So when Trump tried to regain, let's say it was actually stolen, Trump went to the courts, as you ought to do, to try to regain. He lost there too. Biden beat him in the courts. Of 61 courts, only one court gave a reasonable suspicion that the election was stolen. The court said no foul. The court said it was not. So the logic here, and I'm not here trying to beat up on anybody. I'm not here trying to belittle anybody. I'm just trying to talk to you. If Biden stole the election, okay. Then Trump tries to do what's right. He goes to court to try to get it back, and Biden beats him again in court. Right? That's what happened. You say, well, the courts were rigged. Whatever, we'll worry about that. Don't whether they're rigged or not rigged. Let's not discuss that. All we know is that he lost in the courts as well. So there's 2 times Biden has beaten Trump. right? And, the call down to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Rassenberger, you've heard that, where Trump said, all I want you to do is to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than what we have. You heard that. It's on tape. You heard it. And effectively, Trump is saying, now, he's saying to Brad Rassenberger, just say you're doing a recount and find some votes for us. That within itself is an acknowledgement that at least there were more votes in Georgia for Biden than there were for Trump. So Trump is suggesting, you do a recount, you might find some more. All for me. All we need is 11,780. We're good to go. Not only was that turned down, but it was criminal, because you can't do that. You can't do that. you can't do it. Even if the election was stolen, and even if there were more votes in Georgia that weren't counted for Trump, you can't handle it that way. You got to take it to the courts. You can't get on the phone and tell somebody, do me a favor, get me some more votes. You can't do that. It's criminal. So now, having been defeated in the November 6th vote and then being defeated in the courts, he gets defeated by a red state who said, no, you lost. Get lost, Brad Rassenberger said. That didn't work. So now you put together a plan for the vice president, Mike Pence, to disallow and annul the election. You have several meetings in the White House with Rudy Giuliani, with Mike Pence, with Stephanie Powers, with that Eastman boy, and with Ivanka and Don Jr., and Mark Meadows, all in the White House, all over everywhere, running around like their hair's on fire, talking to Mike Pence. Mike, you got the power. You got the power. It's the constitutional right of the vice president to annul or to accept, to certify the election. Mike, don't do it. Don't certify this election. Don't do it. Right? So now this has nothing to do with Biden or the Democrats or the liberals. This is a thing between a man who's president and another man who's his vice president, man to man. And Trump says to Pence, if you don't do this, that means I chose the wrong man 4 years ago. But Pence goes over to the Capitol building where the certification is going on full steam. And he doesn't overturn it. But before he gets an opportunity to fully do that, Trump holds a rally. Giuliani said, let's have court by battle. Bunch of other, Mo Brooks and others out there. So you get a bunch of folk, whether they were FBI or not, whether those people that stormed the Capitol, assaulted the Capitol building, whether they were FBI or whether they were Antifa or whether they were Black Lives Matter participants. Well, we can say what you want to say, that they weren't really Trump supporters. Trump supporters are all peaceful. Well, then you let the FBI make you look bad, so you ought to really do something about that. Now, I'm telling you what I'm saying is happening. But you lost the election on November 6th. You lost in the courts. You got beat again. You got beat twice. You couldn't convince a Republican state secretary to find some votes for you. You got beat a third time, and now you're facing criminal charges. You asked Mike Pence to do you a solid. That's what Big Bob told me. You don't ask people to do a favor, ask people to do you a solid. You ask Mike Pence to do you a solid, and he won't do it for you. Mike won't do it. Mike goes over and certifies the election. Then you got the insurrection, and they fail. They failed to find Nancy Pelosi. Guy sitting up in Nancy Pelosi's office with his foot up on the desk. Where's Mike Pence? They failed to get him. All right? They failed to find Liz Cheney and they failed to find the people they were looking for. And everybody, including Kevin McCarthy, were hiding under their death. My logic says to me that, first, Trump has been beaten solidly, publicly, 5 times. Biden has whooped the snot out of him. Now, if you say that Biden stole the election, I'm not saying that. But if you say that Biden stole the election, then what you're saying is Biden has whooped the snot out of Trump 5 times. Biden 5, Trump 0. Now, how's that set with you? Well, if Biden, old Sleepy Joe, Biden my time, Biden can steal something from Trump, well, who else stole something that we don't know about yet? You see? I find it quite illogical that you people are running around here talking about the election was stolen. And even if it was, I'm not saying that it wasn't. I'm not saying that it was. But you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that because it makes Trump look weaker than sugar water. You shouldn't say it. You shouldn't say the election was stolen. You shouldn't say it. Because you can't take a strong man's goods unless you're stronger than him. Therefore, we get strong-arm robbery. Okay, let me get back to the other question, my first question. Initially, when I first drove up, honk, honk, I don't know if you remember, I first drove up, I asked you the question. If Jasmine Arbery is offended by that, I ask you, daughter, please forgive me. I don't mean to do you any harm. But you're such a beautiful example of what I want to say. And your testimony at the hearing of your brother's killer's sentence was so touching and so moving. But Jasmine, if you are offended, please forgive me. I ask you from the depths of my heart, please forgive me. Now, having said that, suppose a white man married Jasmine Arbery. A white man. Sure enough, Stomp Down, Georgia, Brunswick County, white man married Jasmine Arbery. And they have a son. Would that son be considered white? Because the father's white. Or would that son be considered black? Because the mother's black. I think you see where I'm going. You see, I'm using logic on both of these so-called presidents. You see, there ain't no way if Jasmine Arbery gave birth to a son by way of a white man that anybody would call the son white. He'd just be another black boy. That's all. He'd be another black baby came out of a black woman. And not that I don't mean to be ugly or anything. No. But you see what I'm saying? But you look at these people running around here with Obama, who had allegedly a black father and a Stomp Down, sure enough, white mama, yet they say he is black. But there ain't no way in hell that anybody would say that a white man making Jasmine Arbery pregnant and giving birth would call that boy white. Ain't no way, Jose. Ain't no way, Aretha Franklin. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. You see how ridiculous, how illogical the American people are. We're in the tribulation, I tell you. Me, I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. When you